Hello, my name is Dr. Rudy Nazarene-Roy, and I'm excited to be here today to share a short presentation on parenting during COVID-19, remembering to be brave. A few years ago, some colleagues and I began to conduct research on the experiences of student parents on college campuses. Through this work, we've come to learn that both mothers and fathers have unique experiences compared to parents who aren't college students, and they also have unique experiences compared to their college peers who aren't parents. We found that within the student-parent population, there are diverse experiences, and often these experiences and the diversity of these experiences are linked to family structure. You should understand that student parents are married. We have student parents who are single. We have student parents who are cohabiting. We have student parents who are living with their own parents or partnered and living with their partner's parents. There's a lot of diversity in terms of family structure within student parents. We also have student parents who've relocated for school and are quite isolated from their family and their support systems that might be in a different state. And so often these different support networks that they have access to impact their experiences. In addition to these support systems that are already in place due to their family structures, we see that student parents are actually extremely resourceful. They seek out support. They create networks of support amongst their peers, so other student parents on college campuses. They also seek out support in their communities. And so overall, we see that student parents are extremely resourceful in seeking out and finding support and putting support in play for themselves and their children. We also see a level of determination among student parents. They are extremely determined to finish their degree, to be successful in their studies, and often they cite their child or their children as their greatest motivation to finishing that degree. For student parents who have made the transition while in school, it's common to hear that they talk about their time management skills and how much their time management skills have really changed since they've become parents. They talk about the fact that now, as student parents, when they have that hour or 2 hours without their child, they're really focused on the task at hand, whether it's studying, getting assignments done. They know that this valued time needs to be taken advantage of because they don't always have it. And student parents who were students before they became parents will discuss the fact that they didn't always use their time in the same way. But now that they see time as a real resource, they know to take advantage whenever they do have that free time. And so we see that determination, that motivation to be successful in their studies is common among student parents. Now, when we talk about parenting during COVID-19, I want to first start by saying that, this is a global pandemic. This is not just impacting students. This is not just impacting student parents. This is really impacting our larger society. But I do want to focus in on parents because the reality is that most parents have a common experience now in that they are very much involved and engaged in their children's learning. I know that for many of us, as parents, our children were sent home in March. We were told that we were going to have an extended spring break, maybe that 1 week spring break turned into 2 or 3 weeks, and then the children would go back to school after spring break. And then as things evolved in our country and in our state, we were told that they were not going back for the academic year and we would be returning to remote learning. And that was definitely challenging, to say the least. I can say in our home with the 2 young children that we have, we last year had a daughter in TK and a daughter in second grade. And although our daughter in second grade was skillful at being able to navigate the internet and click on the links that her teacher had assigned for the day, and they had daily assignments that were due in the evening, our daughter in TK was not so familiar with a computer, and she definitely needed someone beside her clicking on and clicking off. Her teacher, they had a couple of Zoom sessions during the week to assess their learning, and unfortunately, due to our schedules as working parents, we weren't able to accommodate those Zoom sessions. And I remember 3 weeks into remote learning when our schedules were actually matching up so that she could kind of participate in this Zoom activity with her teacher. When we turned the Zoom on, she pulled a blanket over her head and continued for 20 to 30 minutes, the length of the Zoom meeting, to be under the blanket. She did not want to engage. She did not want to participate. And as a parent, I really had to assess that situation, and I wasn't going to force her. I have to admit, she was in TK. I did not feel stressed that this was going to impact her academic life and her academic career. I mean, she wasn't in high school or middle school. She was in TK, and so we could make that decision. That's not the experience that other parents have had when their children have not wanted to participate. And so I share that experience to say that every family is different, and every situation is different depending on the comfort level of your child, depending on the situation you have at home, depending on the developmental stage of your child. There's a lot of factors in place, but what is common is that as parents, we all really struggled last spring when we tried to accommodate remote learning while trying to continue our own work, and for student parents, their own studies that turned into being remote learning at the same time. And so I recall an experience I had the first time I went into a store when we were lining up to go into stores with masks. I remember I was actually in Target. I had my mask on. I walked into the store. There weren't a lot of people in there. They were really limiting how many people went into the store. Everyone was wearing a mask. I felt like I was in a movie scene. It didn't seem like part of my reality. And then there was an announcement that came on, and it was a staff member reminding us to participate in social distancing, reminding us to be respectful of the health of others, to keep our masks on at all times. And the announcement ended with this phrase of, we are in this together. And I thought, okay, I'm definitely in a movie. We are in this together. And over the last few months, I've heard that phrase a lot, and it's really part of our reality now. We are definitely in this together, and no matter what meeting I'm in, no matter what the situation is where I'm talking to other adults, I feel like everyone, parents, non-parents, everyone is really struggling with the unknowns and the fact that we have seen a shift in our realities, and this has really created a lot of stress for everybody. I don't think working from home right now is the same as people who might have had the opportunity to work from home before, because oftentimes when we're working from home now, we're working from home with our partner, with our children, and so the space that we have at home is not necessarily the same space that we might have had if we were working from home prior to COVID-19 and this global pandemic. So what we're seeing is among parents this common experience of limited resources, and the two resources that I want to talk about that you might have some control over are the resources of space and time. I think that For many of us, we have limited space at home, and we have to create space in which we can do our work, and then create some comfort and space for our children so that they can feel comfortable engaging and doing their work. And depending on the developmental stage of children, sometimes our children have to be next to us so that we can assist them. And sometimes our children can be independent and on their own. I think the real struggle in terms of space is the reality that some parents need complete attention on the computer when they're working a 9-to-5 job, or students who might be taking an exam online, or might be trying to listen to a lecture. If it's not pre-recorded or an asynchronous class, if they have to participate, that can be quite difficult. If there are young children who might need your attention at the same time. So space definitely has created challenges for us. But we've also seen parents who've been extremely resourceful, who have really created these spaces for their children, whether it's just a tray that's mobile and the child can move it with them, and it contains all of the supplies they need for their learning that day, or if it's a space in a corner of a room that they've created for their children. I mean, parents have been extremely resourceful in creating new spaces within the limited space that they have. And I think that speaks volumes to the fact that we are adapting and we're trying to make the best of our situation. We're also seeing that resource of time. Earlier, I talked about student parents being very resourceful and having great time management skills now that they have the added responsibility of taking care of their children. And so we find that student parents and parents in general talking about the fact that they stay up later at night to get some tasks done when their children go to sleep, or if they're more of a morning person, they try to get up earlier to get some tasks done before their children get up. And they've really tried to, at the cost of sleep, try to adapt to their daily situations. The unfortunate part of this situation is for parents who can't really log off of their workday. They're left with, a 9-to-5 shift, whether they have to go into work or whether they're working remotely, and then they can't help their children who have the tasks that they have to get done during the day. So when the parents are available, it's usually after 5. That's the same time that most teachers have gone home to meet the needs of their own families. And although teachers have done some amazing work adapting to new teaching platforms, the reality is that when teachers are available, parents are usually working themselves, and so we're not seeing office hours from teachers in the evening, and so it creates challenges and frustration within the home. Children who are used to working independently without the help of their parents are now frustrated because their parents can't help them. Parents who have multiple children who might need to be on multiple devices have that extra stress of how do I assist my child? How do I make sure that my children have access to the resources that they need? And so there are just a ton of stressors that have been created due to the circumstances that we're in with COVID-19. And so we really see this impacting families. And in order to really think about this and how to cope with this, I want to really focus on your role as a parent, and what are we really talking about when we say, what can you do and how can you do it? And first, I want to say that there is no one perfect path to parenting. I mean, even prior to COVID-19, we all face challenges as parents. We all have different skill sets. There's things that we do well, there's things that we need to work on, but we've all learned to parent, and we have to remember that we really have certain roles when it comes to parenting, and our key role is really meeting the needs of our children. And I find that when we focus on that during this time of increased stress, it brings us back to what can we do. So just to kind of re-emphasize roles, as a parent's role is simply to meet the needs of their child. And of course, we have age-appropriate needs depending on a child's developmental stage. I talked about some kids are used to being independent and being able to do their schoolwork on their own. Now they're facing challenges and need more support. So obviously COVID has impacted some of our children's needs, but generally speaking, children have different needs depending on where they are in terms of their developmental stages, from infancy, when children have a lot of physical needs that they need from us, from changing their diapers to feeding them, to soothing them, to comforting them to sleep, to adolescence, where we see children needing more guidance from us. They need our guidance in learning conflict resolution skills with their friends. So really like a large spectrum of needs that children have. What we see across the developmental stages and really across the lifespan is when we talk about parent-child relationships, and we talk about the needs that parents really meet for their children, there is some consistency here. And the first one is nurturance. So we as parents are really meant to nurture our children, to meet that need, provide financial security for our children, set appropriate limits for our children. As young as 2 to 3, we're helping our children make choices. We want them to make healthy choices, and so we have to create these safe boundaries within which they can make choices, and that helps them across the developmental stages. The last need that I kind of want to focus on here, because it becomes a really important need, is our children look to us for predictability. And with young children, this is quite important. You might have heard before when people talk about routines are important for children. Really, it comes down to predictability. We are living in a time in our society where there's a lot of uncertainty, whether your child is in school right now, doing hybrid school, going a few hours or a couple of days. There's still that uncertainty that if something happens within their class, if someone becomes sick, they might all have to quarantine. And so there's a lot of unknowns. And as adults, when we experience these unknowns, we obviously experience stress. But for children, they can't always express that stress. And so you might have a child who has a lot of anxiety, doesn't want to get out of bed, doesn't want to go onto a Zoom call, and they're quite upset. And so if you can create some predictability, some routine in their day, that might help in terms of letting them know what's to come. Also giving them things to look forward to. So if you have a daily routine or a weekly routine where you say, on Fridays we're going to celebrate 5 successful days of mom or dad working and going to school, and you getting your tasks done. And so Fridays we're going to go for a walk, or I don't want to put a price. I don't want to say that you're going to go for ice cream or give them a food reward if that's not what you want to do, but give them something to look forward to. And it might be daily, when everyone is done with their tasks at 4 o'clock, we're going to go for a walk as a family. We're going to get out of the house, and it gives them something that they know that once they're done their tasks, this is kind of a routine, something that they do, whether you want to make it a ritual and a celebration, or if you want to make it a daily routine. But giving children some predictability of what's to come next, create stability for them, and that becomes so important as we think about this reality that there's so much uncertainty for us. And so you have to think about what you have control over and creating control within your own home, creating some predictable space for your children and for yourself. I think this is an important time, if you don't already have a lot of routines at home, to establish routines. So, morning routine, this is what it looks like when we get up. I know I have conversations with my friends and colleagues about my mornings aren't as stressful as they were when my children were going to school. We have stressors in other ways, but I feel like my mornings are a little bit more calmer because I'm not getting up early to make lunch and get them out of bed and get myself ready and get them ready and everyone get out of the house before 8 o'clock so we can get to school on time now. I feel like things are a little bit more relaxed in the mornings, and it's created a different routine for us. Where I can get some work done before they get up. And sometimes, that isn't always, work. It might just be time for myself. And that is something I want to talk about, that, in all of this chaos as parents, we also need to remember to take care of ourselves. And so it brings me to the next slide of self-care. I think as parents, one of the things that we let go of, it's one of the easiest things to let go of, is caring for ourselves. And we really need to remember that we're important. You as a parent are extremely important. Psychologists have often talked about the airplane oxygen masks and the fact that, the reason they tell you as an adult to put the oxygen mask on before you give it to your child is because you really need to be okay before you can ensure that your child is okay. And that's just part of our reality. God forbid if you are having, health issues, or if you aren't taking care of yourself, then everything that you feel like you want to do for your children will be impacted. And so if you can ensure that you're taking care of yourself, you're giving yourself a little bit of time, and that self-care, that becomes extremely important. And I talked about myself getting up early. Well, for the past few years now, since I had my second daughter, who's now 6, I have started to get up before everyone in the house and have my first cup of coffee alone in quiet. And that's really my routine and my self-care. Maybe I get 20 minutes of that. And it really arose out of the fact that before I had a family, I enjoyed, unwinding and having coffee with my friends. And I've created this new kind of ritual of self-care where I can have my cup of coffee, enjoy it. I'm not writing or reading or doing anything. It's just quiet time. I can reflect on things that I need to get done for that day. But it's really just me time, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Like I said, it's like 20 minutes. So, your self-care doesn't have to be a whole day of self-care. Whether it's writing in a journal, reading a chapter in a book, participating in a yoga session online, or a meditation session, or whatever it is that you need. And of course, self-care is unique to the individual. Mom might have a different self-care routine than dad. The reality is that we all need it. And we need to recognize that we all need it. But one thing that I think as parents that we need to remember is we also need to model the importance of self-care to our children. We need to help our children understand that it's okay to take care of you, and you don't always have to give, and you can have time for yourself, and mom needs that time and dad needs that time, and you as a child might need that time where you have 30 minutes to do something that you enjoy to do, and that's really taking care of yourself. So I hope this focus on roles and self-care kind of gives you some strategies to come back to as you feel like COVID is just becoming overwhelming, and there's so many things to do in the day and just not enough time or not enough space. But I want to leave you with a thought, and that is to be brave. And what I mean by being brave, and I want you to remember, if you can't remember anything I've said so far, what I want you to remember is to be brave. And what I mean by that is remember to breathe, respond, acknowledge, validate, and empathize. And so when I say remember to breathe, what I'm saying is make the conscious effort to take deep breaths. And I know that it's kind of, silly to say, remember to breathe, but oftentimes we can get overwhelmed. There's so much going on. There's so many things that need to get done. And we often forget to just take a moment and just take a deep breath. And maybe you need 3 or 5 deep breaths when there's a situation where you need to be on a Zoom call, but your child is crying for you, or you need to get a task done because the deadline is 5 o'clock and you're not there yet. So just breathe and be mindful of your limits. Maybe 7 months ago, you are an amazing taskmaster and you are a multitasker and you can get a lot done. Be mindful that, maybe you're not in the same place right now, and that's okay. It's okay to say no to things. So know your limits and breathe. Remember to breathe, because that will help you when situations arise and you need to respond. Because if you're not breathing and you're not taking care of yourself, you're more likely to react to a situation, and oftentimes that reaction might, you might say something to your child or to your partner that you wish you hadn't, but you were just in the moment and you weren't breathing and you weren't thinking about what you were going to say. But if you, create some calm for yourself and consciously try to respond instead of react, you'll make a better choice in what you're about to say. I know that oftentimes when we talk to parents about parenting, we say, taste your words, say your words in your head before you speak them out loud to your children. We're not perfect, and you might say something that you'll later have to apologize for. But you can't really take anything back, right, once you put it out there. And so if you're in a place where you're calm, you're more likely to respond to situations instead of react to them. I say that, and then of course I say you do not have to be perfect, right? I mean, we all make mistakes, and you might say something out of, in the moment because you're stressed, and you can always apologize, but trying to catch yourself before you say something is super important. And sometimes it's not what you say, but how you're saying it. If you're yelling all the time, maybe recognizing that you need to take some deep breaths. But I also want, as part of this being brave, breathing, responding, I want you to acknowledge the fact that this is not our normal, but it is our current situation, and we all need support. So if you're stressed out and you need more support today than you did 7 months ago, it's okay to acknowledge that. It's okay to seek out resources. We'll definitely have some resources available with this presentation for you to reach out to. We have support groups on campus and other resources, but it's okay to say that you need support, whether it's talking to someone or finding additional resources that you need at home. We are really in this together, and I think that phrase that really caught me earlier on in this situation now just resonates with me, that we are definitely all in this together. And as a faculty member, I've had students email me, after assignments or a test and say, Dr. Roy, this is not a demonstration of what I know, and I hope you know that I'm a better student. And my response is always that, I understand. I mean, your performance is not, the end all and be all of your grade, and I have multiple ways of assessing your knowledge in the class, and I don't want you to feel like I'm going to see this and it's going to reflect how I see you. This is a difficult time for us, and the fact that we can acknowledge that it's difficult is so important. And not only acknowledging for ourselves, but also validating the experiences of our children. So validate your child's feelings when children tell you that they're sad, that they're scared, that they're angry because they want to see their friends. That really needs to be validated, and you can share that you're sad and that you want to see your friends too, and let them know that what they're experiencing is normal and it's okay. And oftentimes children want that reassurance from their parents that, this is not something that's just happening to them, but it's really happening to all of us. And you might not be able to take that feeling away, and that's okay. You just need to be present with them and help them understand that it's okay to be sad and angry at the same time. We can have multiple feelings at once, and just validate that what they're going through, they're not alone. Other children are experiencing the same thing. And so giving them that reassurance that, COVID will end and we will go back to somewhat of a normal situation where they can see their friends and interact with their friends more. But right now, it's okay to be sad and upset that they can't see their friends. Maybe you can reach out and create opportunities for them to FaceTime or have a Zoom meeting with their friends. Seek out those opportunities, but definitely validate some of the feelings that they're sharing with you, and help them express those feelings, whether they're talking about it or they're coloring or drawing or playing, to get those feelings out and validate that that's okay, and that these feelings are normal, and a lot of kids are experiencing these types of feelings. And I want to end BRAVE with the E for empathize. Have empathy for your children. This is so hard for us as adults, and the little people in our lives are experiencing this too, and it's been an extreme challenge for the little people in our homes. And so we have to remember that, and also remember that you have to have empathy for yourself. If you recall, I started this presentation talking about really the strengths of student parents, their resourcefulness, their determination, and we're doing this and you're doing this. And so have self-compassion when you are having a hard day. Recognize that this is a difficult time. It's a difficult time for all of us, and you have a lot going on, and you're doing it. You are in your classes, you're trying to get as much done as you can, you're caring for your children, you're trying to support your children as much as you can. So have some self-compassion. Recognize that we are definitely not in a normal situation here. There's a lot of unknowns, and you are doing the best that you can. And I think we all have to remember that. So as you continue the rest of this year and going into the new year and in the spring, remember to be brave. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I hope that you can also watch Dr. Brolin's presentation, where she moves us into brave spaces and talking to children about race. Thank you.